It is Bongiziwe Mabandla coming through with Zange. That is how we kick off the show this afternoon. I hope you're having a great day thus far. It's a beautiful, calm day in Johannesburg. Lots going on, lots scheduled on the show today by way of conversation, and we'll definitely keep you abreast with what that all entails. We're going to be talking naming and shaming rape suspects, as well as catching up with the inaugural Community Radio Awards, which celebrates excellence in broadcasting. And then the University of Pretoria is also going to be in conversation with us. You definitely want to stick around for that show. That and so much more conversation coming up right here on The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga.
Equality, human dignity, freedom of movement and residence, life. Everyone has the right to life. Human Rights Month on SAFM.
The G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group technical meeting has kicked off in the Western Cape from March the 3rd until the 5th. Global leaders are convening to tackle critical anti-corruption strategies. Discussions will focus on three key areas: strengthening public sector integrity, enhancing asset recovery, and promoting inclusive participation. This meeting marks a key step towards global accountability. A message by the Department of Public Service and Administration.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. If you are streaming us today, there's so many moving parts happening on the show as the conversation happens. And I hope you are streaming us on all of our social media platforms. You can definitely find us on safm.co.za, as well as our X handles, as well as Instagram. We're going to be having a conversation now around naming and shaming rape suspects. The South African court ruling challenges current thinking. And this is a conversation that we've been catching up with for the better part of last year. And there's been a call for there to be a sexual offenders bill registry to be made public. And of course, there was some developments in as far as that is concerned just last week. Joining us now is Bridget Masinga, who's the professor with the University of Witwatersrand. How are you doing this afternoon, Bridget?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for the time. So in recent years, public naming of perpetrators of gender-based violence and sexual violences has become more prevalent. And this has been driven in part also by movements like #MeToo. But there's also been a shift that has sparked significant backlash, right? With a few accused individuals now turning to the courts to silence survivors through defamation cases and protection orders. Where are we with this conversation in South Africa, considering everything that we know about the social construct of the country?
Right, so you're going to kick off with a really easy question, I see. The lineage of this problem, as you know, and as I think you correctly stated, stems from #MeToo. And one of the profound learnings and celebrations of #MeToo was a shift from the isolation to the communal of people who experience gender-based violence. So all of a sudden, there was this revelation that actually I'm not the only one. There are others like me. And this had two important repercussions. The first, obviously, is a sense of community and the sense that one could support. Well, actually, there were three effects. The first was the sense of community. The second was realizing that other very powerful women had also been hurt. And that, I think, challenged the assumption that there's a typical one-size-fits-all victim of gender-based violence. And the third very powerful impact was that, and that certainly has been my experience in my work, there is hardly ever one victim. As soon as a perpetrator is named, other people start coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Me too."
Yeah.
Hence the name, Me Too. And all of this led to, as you know, a number of South African offshoots. There was the Rhodes list, there was a number of other lists that developed after Uyuneni's terrible torture and death. So these statements also saw South African women start to feel, for once, a meaningful response to gender-based violence. But gender-based violence, of course, is not only about the act of the violence, it's about the state response. It's about, do you obtain remedies, relief, justice? Are you seen and heard? And in South Africa, less than 8% of reported rape cases result in a conviction, and that's not taking into account whether there may have been appeals. And so when you have such a slim chance of justice, clearly you are alone as a victim or a survivor. So the communal aspect of naming became so terribly important. But as you've said, the response to being named by many, many men is to use a number of legal interventions to silence the narrator, the person who is narrating her story. And it's been very poignant because the legislation that they're using predominantly comes from the Domestic Violence Act or the Protection from Harassment Act. Those pieces of legislation were part of a suite of legislation passed really to protect women from violence. And now they've been used by men accused of perpetrating violence against women to silence the women who are identifying their perpetrators. And that, apart from the very real co-option and expropriation or misappropriation, rather, of that legislation to silence women, it's also, I think, recreated or resuscitated a subtle but very real stereotype around women claiming or stating that they've been raped. And for the most part, we always assume a woman cannot be telling the truth unless a court has found that the perpetrator is guilty. But if you take into account the fact that only 8% of rapes result in of reported rapes, right? And they say only half of the rapes in South Africa are ever reported. So if you say that only 8% of reported rapes are ever result in a conviction, then you have a contradictory outcome. On the one hand, everybody in South Africa agrees, including the government, that gender-based violence in South Africa is pandemic-like. It affects over 1/3 of the country, and it occurs on a level that is pretty unique in South Africa. But then on the other hand, you say, well, less than 8% of cases are real, are true, if you take as a barometer of truth conviction. And so in the last few years, there's been quite a bit of litigation run predominantly by the Women's Legal Centre in Cape Town, which is a fantastic organization, I think, leading the charge on many of these cases. And in some of those cases in which I was involved, there's been an essential shift in jurisprudence and understanding how the law should be used.
Yeah.
And one of the very important statements to come out of the court was this, that given the nature of gender-based violence in South Africa, given how silencing it is, given how marginalized, excluded, and alienated victims and survivors are, it's very important to start off with an assumption that women may be telling the truth. They also said a determination of truth is not whether the victim reported the case, and certainly not whether a case proceeded to a conviction, because the justice system cannot properly represent accountability. It's just not a tool available to victims and survivors. So these are the...
Yes, sorry, Bonita. Finish your thought, sorry.
No, not at all. So these are the types of cases that are progressing, but one of the aspects of this litigation that remains unaddressed is the fact that women are being called to court, sued for exorbitant damages, told that they're not allowed to ever talk about any rape ever that has happened to them, vilified, and we hear this narrative that used to exist in our law up until the 1980s, that a woman who claims that she has been raped must be lying. She must be trying to either weaponize the story against the perpetrator. She must be duplicitous and devious, and especially if she doesn't fall into the idea of what a rape victim looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine, the backlash through these defamation cases. And we've seen even some, public personas who've either made allegations or who've supported victims who've made public allegations against public figures. We've seen a lot of them also having to answer to these defamation cases, right, and these protection orders. And I mean, what does that kind of retaliation do, to victims, ultimately, those who are brave enough to either pursue, processes through the court, or those who are also just equally as brave, perhaps, to speak their story? When you know that there's going to be a retaliation, or there's a likelihood of there going to be a retaliation, especially in a case where, as you say, that there's a determination of truth is not whether or not a case was reported.
Well, I think that the first thing I want to say is the reason why women publicly name their perpetrators, at least in the research and the information we have, it's got nothing to do with revenge. Nothing. It's got everything to do with keeping other women safe. It's got everything to do with speaking one's truth. In the cases in which I've been involved, there's more often than not a sense of, but I know he's going to hurt someone else.
Yeah.
And so the impact that we must actually ask about, you correctly said, what is the impact on the individual, but also what is the impact communally? So on the individual, the impact is blindingly awful. Firstly, any person who goes through a legal process, who goes through the courts, it's very traumatic, no matter where you are positioned in society, no matter if you're a professional or otherwise, if you have lots of money or otherwise, it's a very traumatic process.
Yeah.
Add to that the fact that what you're being dragged to court to answer for is the fact that what you say, your truth, is true. So that results in a mini trial often for women. They've decided not to pursue the criminal justice system often for very good reasons. The criminal justice system is not designed to help women in this respect. Women often talk about the criminal justice system as a second rape. And here women are being brought back into court or brought to court and have to justify their truth. So that's awful. Then there's also the socioeconomic component. The cost of court and the cost of lawyers is exorbitant. And unless one is able to obtain pro bono representation, there's very little chance that most people will be able to afford the cost of going to court.
Yeah.
The magistrates' court's proceedings are far less expensive, but they still present a challenge. And there's also what I've been told, obviously this is information I've obtained, having never been, thankfully, in that position, but I've also been told of a deep sense of vulnerability, a deep sense of not only has he done this to me, but he has also formally silenced me, and he's won. and the court process that's supposed to be fair and independent has agreed with him. This then has an impact on society at large, where other complainants and victims will hear about this and make a decision either to proceed, which will take enormous strength and assistance, or to refrain from making public comments for fear of being brought to court. And if we circle back to my earlier point as to why women publicly name their perpetrators, for the majority, it's to protect other women. And that is an impact on society that's particularly pernicious.
It is also, I think the question that we'd also like to ask our listeners for this conversation is, because we are talking naming and shaming, rape suspects or those who've been accused. I'd love to know from our listeners, where should we draw the line between protecting the rights of accused individuals and the rights of survivors to actually speak out and tell their story, and whether or not a balance in that regard can be maintained. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, and 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. The findings in the LW versus KA High Court ruling, which is, I think, something that you were also involved in. The 2023 High Court ruling in that case determined that publicly naming a perpetrator does not constitute harassment. Can you perhaps enlighten us a little bit on that? Because there will be people that say, well, just because I'm a perpetrator, whether I'm accused and found guilty, I still have the right to some kind of privacy and protections.
The debate or the balancing that you articulated or identified is spot on. There is a balance between, on the one hand, protecting a person's reputation, and we can't wish that away. We can't pretend it doesn't matter. It absolutely does. The competing right or rights are twofold. One is the right to physical safety, to be free from harm, bodily harm. And the second is the right to freedom of expression. So you have these two pots, if you will, of competing rights. And the LW court in that case, it was an appeal against a magistrate's court order. And the magistrate's court held that the narrator had violated the Protection from Harassment Act, and a protection order was granted against her that effectively silenced her. The appeal, she appealed the judgment, and the High Court, in hearing the appeal, produced this important judgment. And the judgment held that by naming one's perpetrator is not in and of itself an act of harassment. There needs to be something more. And it broke down the steps to analyzing whether a particular conduct is harassment, which is not very clear from the Act itself. So the Act identifies conduct such as following, emailing, writing, verbal abuse, that type of conduct as offensive conduct. And there's a big question mark as to, does the conduct have to be repetitive? We usually think about harassment as stalking, something that happens on a repetitive basis, and that's not part of our Act, our legislation. But what the court said is, on the one hand, you need to identify whether the conduct is harassment. But then, said the court, the second step is you have to ask whether that conduct was unreasonable. And in this particular instance, the court held that it looked at the various factors, and it said, on the whole, if a few of these factors applied, and the court said it may or may not, right? We may or may not conclude that her conduct constituted an act of harassment. But even if it did, the court said, it was not unreasonable for her to make that post. And it held that it was not unreasonable for her to make that post and to publicly name him because of the context of gross gender-based violence in South Africa. So it took these two competing rights and balanced them under the rubric of the Act.
Yeah. Bonita, can we just pause here for a second as we just take the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side and we'll continue our conversation. Our WhatsApp lines are open on 061 410 4107, and of course you can always give us a call on 086 000 2032.
In your headlines, the Gauteng Health Department's services at Charlotte Maxeke and Rahima Musa hospitals in Johannesburg have been impacted but not halted. The South African economy grew below analysts' expectations by 0.6% in the fourth quarter of last year, from a revised 0.1% contraction in the third quarter of 2024. And 3 SASSA employees in the Eastern Cape have been taken in by police for questioning. For SAFM News, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Ashraf Gada on SAFM.
And a lot of your blame or concern centered around the media. Explain that.
Yeah, look, we have been documenting, all the media campaign to get him to jail and orchestrated. And the court itself, the police, the investigators couldn't even formulate a charge. But the media now wants to take the responsibilities of the police and the investigators.
But I mean, aren't they two separate issues?
We need the media to change their professions and become detectives.
Hanif Hendricks, the leader of the party that the former mayor of Joburg belongs to, that's the Al Jamaa party.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Whether we are at the workplace, within communities, at school, or with our friends and family, we all need to demonstrate the kind of responsibility that we would like to see in our country's future. SAFM commemorates Human Rights Month. Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
To Mela, Bridget, and your guest. Bridget, the rape victims do well by publicly naming and shaming the perpetrator. You know, some women live in abject poverty, so these rapists who are financially viable take advantage of their poverty. So they know that even if they can force themselves on such a needy woman, these women will sweep this crime under carpet for the love of money. So they do the right thing so that other women can know that we do have the beast with 2 legs on this earth. So it's the right thing to publicly allege that we've been raped by a public figure. Good afternoon, lovely sister. How's it from Ramfish?
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM as we continue the conversation with Bonita Meyersveld, who's a professor with the University of the Witwatersrand. And we're talking around naming and shaming rape suspects. And of course, there's been a South African court ruling that's challenging this current thinking. We'd love to hear from your perspective. What are your thoughts on this matter? Whether or not you think there should be a line that's drawn between protecting the rights of the accused individuals and the rights of survivors to speak out. Or perhaps you feel that there could be a balance that could be found somewhere in this conversation. And the truth of the matter, Bonita, because of the society that we live in, right, there'll always be people that are wanting to sort of balance the rights of survivors and the accused one way or another. But obviously all of this needs to be understood in the context of the fact that we live in a country that is really fighting a losing battle when it comes to gender-based violence. Bonita? Oh, Benita, we're on mute. Let's go to a call quickly whilst perhaps we try and get Benita's attention back. Anonymous in
Sorry.
Cape Town, how are you? Oh, you're back.
I'm back.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I was talking while on mute. One of the key features of this whole debate is the assumption that women are monetizing claims, that there really is a group of women who are poor who will lay a complaint and then get a settlement and get a certain amount of money. I cannot, in my sort of 25 years of doing this type of work, I've not come across a false claim. In addition, the statistics worldwide, depending on which statistics you adopt, it's somewhere between 10 and 5% of complaints worldwide are not true, are seen as false complaints. But then we don't even know what a false complaint is. Is it a complaint that is withdrawn, or is it a complaint where it's found to be false? The interesting thing about the case we're discussing is that the court held that the principle is not, the issue is not as to whether the communication was true or not, right? Truth may go to whether it's reasonable, but it's not a requirement to, if the claim is, or the statement is not believed by the court or whomever, that's actually not relevant to the determination of whether it was harassment. It is, of course, relevant to when there is a defamation claim. And understand that the objective of the Prevention from Harassment Act is to stop a person from doing something. There's no monetary benefit, or very little. Whereas a defamation claim does indeed bring a monetary benefit if you can surpass that standard.
Yeah.
So I wonder whether, and this has been my experience, whether there's a perception that women try to monetize this, when in fact for most victims and survivors to go anywhere near a public statement takes enormous energy and strength.
Mm.
And to the extent that people may anecdotally know of such instances where a person made a claim which was found to be untrue, and there are instances, but I know of one in the United Kingdom, and it was a man against a man, where there's a false claim and the person admits, says, I claimed it falsely. I don't know that should get as much airtime as it does in this whole discussion of naming and shaming.
Yeah. We just, please can you pull up the WhatsApp screens for me there as we try to get into some of the messages that have come through on this conversation. We've got Anonymous in Cape Town who would like to weigh in on some thoughts. Anon?
Hello.
How are you? Eastern Cape, Anonymous. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How are you guys?
I'm good, thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, greetings to the professor. Well, actually, what I want to say is this: with regards to the naming and shaming. Actually, there is no naming and shaming. In fact, there is no shaming in calling out someone who has done you wrong, because I feel when that person decided, whether they are a person of power or no power at all, but when that person decided to invade someone else's privacy and space and actually dehumanize them in a sexual or abusive manner, I feel like, why should they've already shamed themselves, then why should they be afraid of being called out in public? Because with my situation, this is someone I reported at every level. However, because they are moneyed and I was told to my face that they're powerful, it is their word against mine, it wasn't a matter of shaming him, but a matter of letting other people know that while you guys are working in your department, in my department, as a young South African woman, I am suffering because this man is doing A, B, and C, and no matter how many times I'm trying to tell him to stop doing what he's doing, he continues to do it to a point where he actually harms me. And even when that happened, nobody gave a damn. Like, so I'm trying to understand which part of shaming is in this entire context, because when somebody sets themselves out to do something, and they should be proud of their actions.
I get you, Anonymous. I get you. And we're so sorry to hear that you've had an experience of sexual harassment. It's never a thing that anyone sets out to experience in life. Is more especially in the workplace where one should be feeling safe. That was Anonymous in the Eastern Cape. We've got some messages here as well on our WhatsApp. When a man is hurt, he bottles the pain, but when a woman is raped, the society will silence her through judgment. Sometimes our women end up being suicidal because we fail to protect them even in the courts. And this one is from Brian in Proche Glen. Another one says, as a man who lives in a country where rape is endemic, we cannot be debating naming and shaming of perpetrators. Naming and shaming should be implemented, as it will be a deterrent for those who do these barbaric things. And perhaps let's go to the voice note as well.
It's a very sensitive topic, Bridget. I'm even scared to comment on this. It's MJ from George. I think that women should come out and name and shame those who have victimized them. But I think particularly it has to be if the court has pronounced that the person is guilty of the crime. Because my worry is that, there are cases like Lady Zamar with Java and Toles Mo, and these are just a few of those cases where, some women abuse that public sympathy for such a serious issue, and then people lose their careers in the process, So I think it has to be based on what the court has pronounced. Maybe I'm wrong.
Bonita, I'll let you have the last bite, because I think, and interestingly enough, we have, a comment from a perspective of someone who was victimized and who felt, the power to take back her life and take back her power, and warning others by sharing her story, and ultimately having to then suffer the repercussions of the threats of legal action and all kinds of retaliation. And on the other side, we also have an argument that's often made by men who sit as allies, who say, as much as we understand, where we sit as a country with this endemic of sexual and violent abuse against women, but we also need to safeguard against false accusations. And I think this is the crux of our conversation today.
Thanks. I think that we can actually see a link between Anonymous in the Eastern Cape and MJ and George, their comments. And let me echo what you've said. Anonymous, I am so deeply sorry for what you've experienced. It is unacceptable. But you'll recall that Anonymous says that she went through a number of challenges. She tried taking the steps that were necessary. And at each point, she was blocked and told he's too powerful. So MJ from George says, you need to be found guilty of the crime before you can be outed. But the problem, MJ, is that the structures that are supposed to help women really don't work. And in all of the cases I've dealt with, and the millions and millions of others that are reported, be it sexual harassment, rape, involving disciplinary proceedings, or the courts, the criminal courts, there are hardly ever moments of accountability. And if you take the statistics of fewer than 8% of reported cases result in a conviction, that means essentially only 8% of women who have reported their rapes, right? That's not women who have been raped. 8% of women who have reported their rapes would then be, quote unquote, allowed to publicly name their perpetrator, which in fact they wouldn't need to, because this information
public
can be
record.
And that doesn't solve the problem. So as Anonymous reveals to us naming, and I agree with her, we shouldn't call it naming and shaming. I think it's a very healthy approach that she's articulated. Naming and identifying the shameful conduct really is another tool. It's a mechanism to try and achieve some type of protection and safety where the state structures have failed.
Yeah.
It's not an arbitrary abstract notion. Women aren't engaging in malicious gossip. They're not, yes, there may be examples, and I don't know the two mentioned by MJ. There may be examples of women who have tried to monetize this, but those examples, I think, are a drop in the ocean, and they get a lot more airtime than they actually deserve.
Benita? Unfortunately, we have to, they're telling me that we have to wrap it here due to our link that's about to abruptly disconnect you. But I think we've opened up the gateways to a conversation that needs to continue being had, because as we tackle the endemic of sexual abuse and violence against women, there's many things that need to come to the table, that need to be considered. And definitely this conversation around naming and shaming rape suspects, whether or not they have been pronounced guilty in a court of law, is one that needs to keep going. We welcome your contributions on our WhatsApp for any of our conversations on 061 410 4107 or 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on. Let's take a quick break and then we come back and we shift gears.
It's time to shine for young athletes across South Africa. From thrilling football and rugby matches to intense netball games. Experience the passion and prowess of Mzansi's finest young sports stars. Super Sports Schools and SABC Plus bring you the specially curated channel dedicated entirely to school and youth sports. Join us as we celebrate their achievements and bring the excitement right to your screens. This is your chance to support the future of South African sports. The Super Sports Schools channel on SABC Plus, where every game is a home game. Don't miss a moment. Download the SABC Plus app today. Available on iOS, Google, and Smart TV. Or visit sabc-plus.com to start streaming. Super Sports Schools on SABC Plus. All the sport you care about most. Now streaming wherever you are.
The Portfolio Committee on Premier and Finance will embark on public hearings throughout the province on the Northwest Appropriation Bill public hearings on 7 March 2025 in Ngaka District at Gelexpan Community Hall in Gelexpan, in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District at Tihani Community Hall in Tihani, in Dr. Ruth Mompati District at Bonabona Community Hall in Bonabona, in Bojanala District at Mohwase Sports and Recreation Center in Mohwase. All hearings start at 10.
In times like these, everyone is looking to save wherever they can. But you don't have to be a detective to know that with OUTsurance, you could be saving big on your car insurance. Hear it from real OUTsurance client Marius.
The great big saving that I've got, 765 Rand, 27% a month on my premium. It's so quick and easy to swap over. I am part of the OUTsurance family.
It's a no-brainer. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Saving on car insurance makes you feel like a winner. And the best part is, if OUTsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Dr. Malava, you are a genius, man.
Dr. Malava speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Doc. My Bezo says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, Malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, Malume. Catch in the arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. starts 9 February, only on S3.
This is a story of Vodacom's impact.
Having the psychosocial support team has benefited us a lot. You're now able to refer to a specialist. We can accredit that to Vodacom.
This is why we do it. We've deployed psychosocial professionals specializing in GBV and bullying across 30 schools of excellence and ECD centers, helping over 30,000 learners. That's why we're the #1 CSI contributor for 8 years running. See more at now.vodacom.coza. Further together, Vodacom.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
It was all good just a week ago. Life was smooth. I was paying almost nothing for electricity tokens. All that changed when I was given a big fine for buying illegal electricity tokens from illegal vendors and my neighbor for tampering with his meter. Now, I might go to jail when all I had to do was register for free basic electricity at my local municipality since I'm unemployed. Ungathatha ama-chance. Buy electricity legally. Report illegal electricity token sales in your area and meter tampering to Eskom on 0800 11 27 22.
The G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group technical meeting has kicked off in the Western Cape from March 3rd to the 5th. Global leaders are convening to tackle critical anti-corruption strategies. Discussions will focus on three key areas: strengthening public sector integrity, enhancing asset recovery, and promoting inclusive participation. This meeting marks a key step towards global accountability. A message by the Department of Public Service and Administration.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Mutseki Mabuya is joining us now, founder of Community Radio Awards. And this is the inaugural Community Radio Awards that celebrates excellence in broadcasting. Boitumelo Media is thrilled to announce this inaugural Community Awards that's set to take place on the 25th of April. How are you doing this afternoon, Mutseki? Are you good?
I'm good, Bridget. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. What's taking you all so long?
Well, because I'm the product of community radio myself as a broadcaster, I'm now part of the SABC finisher as talent on Lesedi FM.
Yes.
I think at my age, I looked at where I come from, and I thought and I felt that it's about time. 30 years later into democracy. And that's the age, or that's how old community radio sector it is. And I felt that it's time that we do what community radio sector deserves.
Absolutely. Because I think, community radio is never really given the glory that it deserves. But if one had to look at sort of the radio industry as an ecosystem, community radio and campus radio station play a very integral part in continuing, impactful conversations, but more so even in creating a pipeline into commercial radio.
No, most certainly. You would not have talent on PBS and commercial had it not been of the role that community radio is playing. We are not taking anything away from those who have got themselves space at PBS and commercial, having not been at community radio. But those who have been at community radio, the community radio has molded their talent. They've got a different skill. They've got more understanding of how radio should be operated, particularly the business side of radio. And I think, Bridget, all we are saying as Boitumelo Media is that let's celebrate talent. Let's celebrate the existence of community radio. But above everything else, let's celebrate those who are ensuring that information reaches the breadth and corners of South Africa through their platforms. But also, these are individuals that are championing the community conversation through community radio platforms.
Absolutely. And those conversations are very important. Let's talk about that. In fact, let's talk about the role of community radio and its ability to be in touch on a grassroots level.
No, certainly. The element of storytelling on a ground level, storytelling in as far as local content is concerned, and local conversations around service delivery at municipality level, local conversations around opportunities for businesses, those who are in sponsorships, those who are in sports, arts and culture. Community radio plays that platform to ensure that there are conversations that can take place. I mean, let's take, for example, during COVID, if you look at how community radio stations were able to ensure that community members within their reach were able to get information, were able to know what level we are in as far as the lockdowns were concerned.
Yeah.
But also, if we look at what we are currently talking about as a country now, the issue of the township economy, it is the community radio sector that has been able to champion that conversation, more so because our people are the ones who are at the forefront of the township economies. So I think we have not done enough, as you correctly said earlier on, in as far as celebrating community radio as a sector.
Absolutely. I've always been of the firm belief, as someone who came straight into commercial radio, 20 years ago this year. But I've always been of the firm belief that there is space for this medium to exist at different spheres and to cater for different conversations that are happening simultaneously. And more than that, there's also a need for all of us to be supportive of each other. You know what I mean? In order for commercial radio to grow and continue being relevant and continue being successful even as business entity, it needs to also be able to plow in and create supportive structures for community radio stations within the regions that it operates in. There's a lot of resource that can be shared by commercial station to community radio stations, community radio broadcasters, in order to ensure that they do what they need to do at the highest level of excellence.
Yeah, look, we've got three components with this initiative, Bridget, and you are touching on our third component, which talks to mentorship and job shadowing. We are in talks with the SABC, for example, and other commercial platforms to say, look, post the radio awards themselves. This is not just the ordinary awards where we want to dress up and look proper and just go back home after the ceremony. But we want to say, beyond the awards themselves, what then, Mufeki? Then we are saying to the SABC and other commercial platforms, listen, here's a platform, here's an opportunity for you to absorb, perhaps as we start, those who would have been the winners and those who would have been nominated into this process as for job shadowing as well as mentorship, so that as and when it's time for you to look for talent, we are bringing the pool very close to you. You know where to stretch your hand. Because also, if you look at the conversations, whether be it on X or on Facebook, a lot of talent, they're also saying, oh, well, lately you've got to be a celebrity before they pull you through.
Yeah.
And we are saying, okay, let's not debate that, but rather let's avail our platforms to those who are looking for talent. And the Community Radio Awards are essentially about that, Bridget, not only about honoring and giving out a certificate or giving out an award or a prize to an individual, but also to say, second component, it's about the training and capacity building. You also alluded on the issue of the resources that most, if not all, community stations are under-resourced. How can corporate play a role in ensuring that the under-resourced one, they can be attended to, they can be resourced? And it is through this Community Radio Awards that we are saying we want to achieve that, because the second component will be to have the indabas provincially and bring those who are interested in contributing to the sector and say, here we are, these are the challenges that we are facing. How can you assist, whether through your CSI, whether through your entrepreneurship development? But we are here. We are existing about 30 years. We are here.
Yeah.
Look for us. We want to be heard.
Well, listen, I've got a keen interest in the category of best talk show host. I'd love to know who's doing what within that arena there. But congratulations on the inaugural Community Radio Awards, which is happening on the 25th of April. That was, of course, Muteki Mabuya, who's the founder of the Community Radio Awards, as well as a fellow broadcaster here on SABC. And those awards are happening on the 25th of April. It's 2 o'clock on the dot. We've got the news coming up with Chanduko. And then, of course, on the other side of that, we continue our conversations.
Thank you, Bridget. Your top stories at this hour. South African economy grows by 0.6% and Zanzu club director condemns club incident. Good afternoon. With the news at 2, I am Chanduko Ligege. The Gauteng Health Department says services at Charlotte Maxeke and Rahima Musa hospitals in Johannesburg have been impacted but not halted. This after Egoli gas cut off supply to the two hospitals due to contractual disputes. The DA in Gauteng says Egoli gas is owed 15 million rands by the department. Hospitals need gas for cooking, heating water and sterilization of instruments. Gauteng Health Department spokesperson Mutalatale Modiba says the matter is receiving attention.
Rahima Musa Mother and Child Hospital has electric autoclave in addition to the gas autoclave, so this mitigates any disruption to autoclaving. The facility's kitchen is operating with gas cylinders to mitigate the absence of central gas supply. At Charlotte Maxeke Johannesburg Academic Hospital, the cutoff has only affected the domestic hot water supply to the hospital and the sterilization of medical equipment. However, the facility continues to operate as normal.
One of the Zanzu nightclub directors, Neo Muela, has condemned the assault incident at the club and has apologized to the victims for their ordeal. Muela was addressing the media through his lawyer, Advocate Zola Majavu, in Johannesburg today. A video has since gone viral on social media showing the man physically and sexually assaulted at the Pretoria nightclub. One person has been arrested and appeared in court yesterday. It has emerged in court that another victim has been traced, bringing the number of complainants to 7. Majavu elaborates.
The police have not given an indication that they are treating him as a suspect. If anything, the police are engaging with him as a person from whom they can source some information to enable them to decide whatever they want to do. It has been reported in the media that other people are being sought. Those people who are being sought and pursued by the police are none other than him, because he is here. The police know how to get hold of him. They have engaged with him.
The South African economy grew below analysts' expectations by 0.6% in the fourth quarter of last year from a revised 0.1% contraction in the third quarter of 2024. Data released by Statistics South Africa shows that the agriculture sector contributed significantly to economic growth in the quarter, followed by finance, real estate and trade. Stats SA data shows that the country's economy grew by only 0.6% for 2024 as a whole, down from 0.7% in 2023. Chief economist at Investec, Annabelle Bishop, says the latest GDP data points to a weak growth outcome.
And here we saw some disappointment come through in terms of the retail sector, essentially. Trade, catering and accommodation rising by 1.4% year on year, but expected potentially to do a bit more given the withdrawals from the two-part retirement system. However, of course, this indicates that many individuals potentially using their withdrawals from their pension savings under the two-part retirement system have actually looked also, of course, as well to work down debt.
3 SASSA employees in the Eastern Cape have been taken in by police for questioning. This after senior SASSA officials made an unannounced visit at their Idutjwa offices. Several identity documents were found in possession of the officials. SASSA Regional Executive Manager Bandile Maqetuka says they received numerous complaints of alleged fraud and corruption taking place at the offices.
I have brought on board our risk and compliance team, our security team, as a district management. The head of trans administration, Mr. Mbeta, is also here with us, and other colleagues who are looking at each and every office, and we have uncovered a lot of pointers towards fraud and corruption.
The city of Cape Town says it is monitoring a gathering of about 100 people in the roadway leading to the station deck in town. The reason for the protest is unclear at this stage. The city spokesperson Maxine Baysetenhold says the gathering has affected traffic in the surrounding areas.
A group of approximately 100 people are standing in the roadway leading to the deck. As a result, traffic officers have closed Christian Barnard Street between Salodi Road and Heathsfield Boulevard. Motorists are advised to please find alternative routes during this time.
Recapping on the top story at 2, the Gauteng Health Department says services at Charlotte Maxeke and Rahima Musa hospitals in Johannesburg have been impacted but not halted. For SAFM News, I am Chanduko Ligege.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Dr. Malava, you are a genius, man. Dr. Malava speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Doc. My Bezo says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, Malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, Malume. Catch in the arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. starts 9 February only on S3.
Equality, human dignity, freedom of movement and residence. Life, everyone has the right to life. Human Rights Month on SAFM. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It's Musa featuring Robbie Masinga. Can never go wrong with this particular duo. And that was the thing, man. It's such a pity that Robbie Masinga is gone too soon, because he just had his stamp, you know, with the musicians that he worked with, that he co-wrote with and co-produced for. He just had his stamp. And you can feel it missing in their projects. As much as they can be releasing, still really releasing good music and good albums, but le gap ya Robbie Masinga is missing there. You know what I mean? Tande is the name of the song. It's fast approaching 2:15 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga on SAFM. I see you still commenting on our earlier conversations around naming and shaming perpetrators of sexual violence and abuses, and we'll maybe try and find some time a little bit later on in the show to also play out some of those voice notes. It is a conversation that needs to continue having, that we need to continue having, and it's a conversation that can be divisive at times, and there's arguments on all sides, and you know, with such conversations you've got to leave room for all the arguments to be ventilated, and then we see how we move forward. Right now, though, we're going to have another conversation looking at International HPV Awareness Day. Tanya Joffe is joining us, the CEO and principal at UNU Health. It is International HPV Awareness Day, and this day highlights the urgent need to make HPV prevention more accessible and affordable for all. How are you doing, Tanya? You good? Tanya?
Hi, can you hear me?
Now I can. Are you good?
I am, thank you.
Awesome.
Wonderful to be on your show, yes.
Thank you for taking the time. Okay, let's start with the basics. HPV, I think, it's a medical acronym that a lot of people hear, but perhaps a lot of people not really understanding when we say HPV, what are we talking about?
It's a virus, the human papilloma virus, which accounts for cervical cancer. So it basically underpins cervical cancer, which is the leading cause of death, cancer-related death among women in South Africa. So hence the big, the drive around awareness.
Does HPV only affect women, or men somehow get their own variation?
So they do. So HPV is typically transmitted. It's a virus transmitted through skin-to-skin contact, usually during vaginal, oral, or anal sex. So based on that transmission, anybody participating in that form of sexual activity is exposed. But it does predominantly affect women. So 67% of women have been exposed to the virus.
Is it? And why is that? Why is it that it's more prevalent amongst women?
So I think it's just the nature of the virus and the way that it is transmitted. But not all the strains are aggressive, and not all the strains will result in a persistent infection that results in cancer. So there are very specific strains. So being exposed to the virus and being positive for having been exposed to the virus does not mean that you will automatically have cervical cancer.
Okay. Let's try and understand. And I know that obviously when we talk, medical diseases or infections, it can get a bit tricky trying to explain it to us, but let's see.
So disclaimer, Bridget, I am a consumer of healthcare, and that's why we founded UNU Health, because we want to make healthcare more accessible. And so I'm not a clinician.
I know, but I get the sense that you know more about HPV than we do, so you'll do a good job.
That's what.
Let's see how well we both can fare in this one. So you say that there are different strains, and not all strains are as intense as the other, right? Are you able to give us an idea, perhaps, of maybe just what are the more common strains and the ones that obviously lead more to cervical cancer, just so that we just have a sort of broader picture of the variety that's out there?
Sure. So the strain that causes most of the cervical cancer, literally 50 to 60% of cervical cancer, is the HP 18. Okay. That underpins the 16. So HPV 16. See, I'm a consumer. So HPV 16 is the strain that underpins literally 50 to 60% of the infections that become persistent, are aggressive, and then result in that cellular change. There are vaccines, and those vaccines literally focus specifically on these strains 16 and 18, as a result of which 70% of your chance of contracting cervical cancer, if you've been vaccinated, are eliminated, which is fantastic.
Oh, lovely. Okay, that's cool. And then when it comes to matters of vaccines, since we are here now, when it comes to matters of vaccines, how and when should one get vaccinated? As we have this conversation, I'm trying to just also, as a woman who goes for regular pap smears, just trying to think that, have I ever been vaccinated for HPV? Would it have been something that would have happened a while ago? Is it something that only happens if you are diagnosed with it?
So the vaccine, typically you want to vaccinate for moms. This is a call out to moms. You want to have your daughter vaccinated between the ages of 9 and 14. Ideally before she's sexually active, because once young girls are sexually active, the HPV virus that they have been exposed to, they won't be protected from those. They will only be protected from viruses that they haven't been, or strains that they haven't been exposed to. So ideally you want to have, and there is a big schools program. So the Department of Health is rolling it out. It's actually active right now in public schools. So if you're a mom and you have a daughter of the ages between 9 and 14, check with your school, ask them, are they part of that program? It's a national program. The private and independent schools are later this year. I think it's August and September. So that's step one. Have your daughter vaccinated. If you've missed it, i.e., you're sort of in the age between 15 and 26, there is a catch-up vaccine that you can get. Pretty much all pharmacies, all clinic pharmacies make this vaccine available. So literally you can pop into a pharmacy, make an appointment with the local clinic, the nurse clinic, and you can get the vaccine. If you've missed that as well, then what you want to be doing is you want to be screening. And typically the screening, it's a self-service kit. We as Inner Health, we've partnered with ANPAS, so I know specifically about their kit, but I have no doubt the other laboratories will also have these kits. You can pop into literally an ANPAS care center, or I'm sure the other laboratories have them, and for 525 Rand, pick up a self-serving screening kit. You do a lower vaginal swab. You take the kit back, and literally within a day, you'll know whether you are infected or not. You typically need to be asymptomatic, though, so you want to be asymptomatic. So, get vaccinated. Moms, get your girls vaccinated. If you've missed it, get a catch-up vaccine, and otherwise, pap smear, absolutely, and then specifically the HPV screening.
Awesome. We're going to take a quick break, Tanya, and then we'll come. You're doing just fine. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back on the other side of this, and we'll continue our conversation.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? At Specsavers, get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So we're talking HPV because it's International HPV Awareness Day, and it affects 80% of sexually active people at some point in their lives. And yet we know that thousands of South African women particularly are still diagnosed with cervical cancer every year. And as you heard Tanya saying, that HPV really is one of the main counters for cervical cancer. But also, it leads to a whole bunch of other diagnosis, and we're talking, certain cancers, including cervical, anal, vaginal. We're talking genital warts. So it really can lead to a variety of things. But the good news is that there are vaccines available here, as you heard, and also it's preventative if you get yourself vaccinated in time. Just to make sure that at very least you've safeguarded yourself. But once you've been diagnosed, there's also things that you can do, treatments and vaccines that you can take. Let's talk about we touched a little bit, obviously, on HPV and ultimately its link to cervical cancer. But let's talk about, its sort of how it impacts the public health crises and it's the impact of HPV and cervical cancer in South Africa, because we do have a high diagnosis number, a high diagnosis rate of cervical cancer in the country.
We do, and I think part of the challenge is that it goes undetected for so long, which is why it is a killer. So we have more incidence of breast cancer, but it's detected earlier, and the interventions are more successful simply because there's early detection, which is why. And one of the challenges is we take care of many people, but not ourselves as women. So that's one of the things. Is like you were saying, you go for your regular pap smear. That's fantastic. Women need to do that because that's where you'll pick up immediately if there's a cellular change, and which underpins cancer. So the moms have the conversations with your teenagers. They are having sex. So, let's not put our heads in the sand. We need to have those conversations without judgment so that we can support them because they're minors. They won't have access without the support of their guardian. Yeah. That's the one. And then for women above the age of 18, absolutely, you need to be screening, doing the pap smears and picking these things up early because then absolutely you can intervene. So it's typically a viral infection that is persistent. And if you then intervene before these new cellular structure changes, you'll catch it and have it treated and not basically drive cervical cancer.
Yeah. Moms and dads as well.
And dads, I guess, yes.
Dads need to get comfortable with having these uncomfortable conversations with their kids. And sometimes it's actually even easier for dad to have this conversation. But by way of affordability, Tanya, there's a conversation around bridging the affordability gap when it comes to providing healthcare and, of course, making access to screening more available and more accessible to more people.
So that's very much what we're trying to do, leveraging technology. We're saying you do so many things from your phone. Why can we not do healthcare from our phone? 90% of South Africans have access to online services via their phones. So what we've done is we've developed an app, Unu Health. It's an app that you can download, and through that app you can see a doctor. The doctor service is supported by Intercare. They provide a great service, literally for 99 Rand, without an appointment. So you can, Monday to Sunday, hop on the app and speak to a doctor, get a script, get a sick note. What we've just added, which is why I'm so close to what's happening with HPV, is we've partnered with AMPAS to offer blood tests. So we do all the STDs. You can order the test from your phone, pay for it on your phone, literally HIV at 99 Rand, pregnancy test at 99 Rand, deeply discounted, with the whole point being if we can start screening and helping people to become aware, we can then engage in more preventative care, which ultimately is going to reduce the burden. The conversation is all around how do you fund healthcare, how do you equalize access to healthcare from a funding perspective. But if we can just drive greater empowerment of people to own their well-being by giving them tools such as self-service screening, access to blood tests at affordable rates, I think we can do a lot to prevent the downstream complications. The number one killer of women in South Africa is diabetes, which is a completely preventable disease. It's largely lifestyle-related, type 2. But most people aren't aware that they have elevated glucose. And so the same with the HPV, have your daughter vaccinated, dads, moms. Yeah. And then also as a woman, have yourself screened. Just check that you aren't suffering from one of those persistent strains.
And I wonder, I don't know, Unu app, is it already up and running?
Yes, absolutely. So you can download it from the Play Store, from the iOS. Okay. It's 0 rated. Yeah. You just need a South African cell phone number and an ideal passport, register your profile, and then literally access these services. The tech is amazing. I mean, I know we're talking HPV, but you can literally do your blood pressure on the app for free, as an example. And that's hypertension is another big big issue, the stress and elevated blood pressure in South Africa. So you can literally check your blood pressure. It's a clinical reading on the app, zero rated. So we're really trying to make all the tools available so that we as consumers can take control.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. Bringing healthcare literally into the hands and homes of South African communities. And that speaks to empowering communities, right? Because it speaks to the practical steps, for instance, that individuals and parents, even healthcare providers can actually take to make healthcare a bit more accessible to folks around them.
Exactly. So regardless of where you are, whether you're in a rural community, as long as you have connectivity and a smartphone, and it doesn't need to be the latest smartphone, quite a simple device, we want to basically place healthcare in your hands. And it's possible now with technology. So it is exciting, but we need awareness. And I think also, like you were saying earlier, the conversations need to be happening.
Absolutely.
Especially amongst parents and their teenage kids. I feel so strongly about that, not to judge, and to just create a safe space where you can check in on the reality of what teenagers are experiencing today.
Absolutely. I guess the positive and the encouraging thing about HPV, since today's HPV Awareness Day, is the fact that it is preventable and it is treatable. If you miss those sort of gaps for you to take the vaccines and you find yourself with some kind of strand, it is treatable. On the downside, though, is the fact that to a large degree it's asymptomatic. And you might only find out if you've got a severe strand, and ultimately you are then showing either warts or, in the extreme case, that you are diagnosed with cervical cancer.
So that's why we just suggest to take care of yourself, do the screening, have your pap smear, and do the HPV screening. And if you do it self-service, it's 525 rand from a AMPAP, and you'll have your results within 24 to 48 hours. So invest in yourself. It's your health is, without your health,
Absolutely. We've run out of time, but we appreciate yours this afternoon. Tanya Joffe, thank you so much for the time. She's the CEO and principal at UNU Health. Today is International HPV Awareness Day, so go out there and get your screening for the human papilloma virus if you haven't as yet. I know that a lot of women actually schedule their pap smears where we go for the full screening round about their birthdays. It becomes like a present to themselves, that they schedule those appointments. But gentlemen, we know that you do your health checks by proxy of your partners, and you need to stop that. You need to go and get your own test done, because there's certain things that your partner's annuals cannot detect or reflect about you. So please, we urge you. There are male clinics everywhere where you can go get tested. My technician is trying to disrupt me in my ear because I know he tests everything by proxy, and he's trying to convince me that he does not. So if you're listening to this conversation, gents, there are male clinics everywhere. Go and get yourself also screened and tested for everything. It's just gone 2:30 on the Full Circle. Myself, Bridget Masinga. We're going to get into the headline news, and then we're going to come back and get into Kids Corner.
Thank you, Bridget. Assessments have started at the Groblersdal Bridge border post outside Lephalale in Limpopo after operations were halted due to flooding. The Gauteng Health Department's services at Charlotte Maxeke and Rahima Musa hospitals in Johannesburg have been impacted but not halted. And the head of the European Commission has announced measures intended to greatly increase defense spending across the EU. For SAFM News, I am Chanduko Ligeki.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hi everybody, my name is Kate, and today I'm going to be talking about hygiene. Hygiene is so important for so many reasons, and now I'm going to tell you my number one hygiene rule. My number one hygiene rule is I always brush my teeth before eating. It's always the first thing I do in the morning and the last thing I do before I go to sleep. Another one of my hygiene rules is I shower twice a day, because I shower in the morning and I shower after school because I either go to hockey or I go to the gym. When I see other people not following these hygiene rules, I feel a bit distressed, but I try to approach it maturely by just asking how come they did it that way. And the thing with showering is I prefer to shower twice a day, and if someone else showers like once a day, then that's okay, because it's really about their preference. But the brushing teeth thing, like, it's very concerning to me when someone doesn't brush their teeth before they start their day.
My name is Labanti Hlongwane, and today we're going to talk about hygiene, and some of the things that I can not live without is, first of all, showering. My biggest fear is smelling. I do not like to smell. When other people smell, I'm not mean to them, but obviously, like, the reaction that other people get when people smell is not, like, it's not nice. So I'm just scared of that.
Hello everybody, my name is Danica Wood. My number one hygiene rules is probably brushing teeth and showering, because I don't like to smell. Like, every morning I make sure I shower myself with perfume. I will brush my teeth. I will make sure that I do not smell, because that is one of my biggest fears ever, not smelling good. And if I come across someone who doesn't shower or brush their teeth, it just makes me feel uneasy. It makes me feel a certain type of way. And, like, I judge a little bit, but not to their face, because I don't want them to feel insecure or anything, but it just makes me feel very uneasy. And yeah, thank you.
Some of the things that I see that are hygienic that other people do is that I see people that wash their hands before eating and after eating, and they don't brush their teeth, wash their face, and also bath. And they don't wash fruits before they eat, because that will be dangerous out of the meds that the farmers poured, or powders that they poured on top of the fruits. What I would like to see other people avoid doing that is that they must always take care of themselves. And why I do think being hygienic is important to children, because it keeps us healthy and protected from germs. So the dangers of not being hygienic is that you can find out that the germs may make you sick, the germs may make you feel tired, like becoming more sick and weaker, and you also die. But I'm not sure about that. So I say everyone, let's take care of ourselves and keep ourselves healthy. Thank you and have a lovely day.
Hello, my name is Bernard Ramadi. I am 12 years old. Hygiene is any practice or activity that you do to keep yourself and things healthy and clean. Cleaning, washing hands, coughing into your elbow, and regular house cleaning are all parts of good hygiene. Hygiene was the Greek of goodness of health, cleanliness, and sanitation. So it's not hard to see where the word hygiene comes from. Some things that I feel that are unhygienic is that I see other people go to the toilet and do their business and they never wash their hands. And also people who do not cough into their elbow. What I would like to see people to do and avoid that is that when they go to the toilet, they must wash their hands and they must also cough into their elbow. Because if they don't do that, they will have germs, and those germs will spread to others, and that's bad. I've not done nothing about it after seeing people do those unhygienic things, because I need a way to get their attention and understand what the bad things about being unhygienic. Why I think being hygienic is important to children is because they will get sick if they're unhygienic. Depending on how bad the germs are, they can lead to death.
Hello friends and happy Tuesday. Today let's talk about something that helps us stay healthy, fresh and full of energy. Good hygiene. Taking care of your body every day is super important because it keeps you feeling great and helps you prevent sicknesses. Here are some simple but important hygiene habits to follow every day. Wash your hands often. Use soap and water, especially before eating, after using the bathroom, and after playing outside or touching pads. This helps stop the spread of germs. Brush your teeth at least twice a day. in the morning and before bed. Brushing your teeth helps keep your breath fresh, your gums healthy, and your smile bright. Don't forget to floss. Take a bath or shower daily. This helps wash away sweat, dirt, and germs, keeping your skin fresh and clean. Wear clean clothes. Fresh clothes help you feel comfortable and prevent skin irritation or bad odors. Trim your nails. Keep nails short and clean. That prevents dirt and germs from building up. Cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. Use a tissue or elbow to stop germs from spreading to others. Now, why is all of this so important? Well, good hygiene prevents sicknesses, keeps you smelling fresh, and boosts your confidence. But when we don't take care of our hygiene, germs can build up, causing illnesses like colds, flu, or even skin infections. So always remember, taking care of yourself is one of the best things you can ever do every day. Stay clean, stay healthy, and keep shining. That's all for today, friends. Keep practicing good hygiene, and I'll see you next time.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
A convicted murderer on death row, a vicar in a quiet English town, and a maths teacher trapped in a cellar cross paths in the most unexpected way. Jefferson Grief is on death row in an American prison for brutally murdering his wife. But it turns out that Grief has a gift. He can solve crimes from inside his cell. English journalist Beth Davenport needs Grief's help. Janice, a woman who recently helped Beth, has gone missing. The last Beth heard from Janice? A text with a blurry image of a man lunging towards the camera. Will Grief crack the case in time? Exactly how is Janice's local vicar involved? And is it really possible to solve a crime before it is committed? Tune into Inside Man, Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Starts 12 February only on S3. Open up.
Hi everyone, I'm Dean McPherson, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. In the State of the Nation reply, I announced that we're releasing 31 state-owned properties for redevelopment that will generate 10 billion rand in investment and create 165,000 new jobs. These public-private partnerships will help us realize our dream to turn South Africa into a construction site. To achieve this, the department in 2025 will be leveraging reforms in infrastructure development through Infrastructure South Africa, release requests for proposals to redevelop our small harbours, which will create tens of thousands of new jobs, as well as reforming the expanded public works program to ensure it becomes a genuine stepping stone to permanent employment. We are accelerating efforts to get more cranes in the sky and more shovels in the ground. Our department is working for you and with you to build a better South Africa for the future.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Let's get into our autobiography slot tonight, and wonderful to chat as far as the sport of horse racing is concerned to a former champion jockey, Anthony Delpeche. Talk to me about your successes in Hong Kong on Vengeance of Rain. Fantastic results that you had sort of almost week in, week out. How did that relationship work between jockey and horse?
Well, he was most probably the best horse I rode in my whole career, and I won 7 Group 1 races on him. I'm lucky enough, obviously, to win most of the Group 1s from a mile to 3,200 in Hong Kong, and going to Dubai and winning the Shima Classic on him. And he was a superstar, and I think it's a jockey's dream to ever be associated with a horse as good as he is.
But the mental capacity to ride in a race like the Hollywood Vets Durban July.
Well, I think to win a race like that, sometimes in sportsmen you've got to have the BNT, the big match temperament. And I always believe those jockeys are the jockeys that's more calm than anything else. And obviously you've got to have the right horse. You don't have the right horse, you can't win the race.
Top Sport on SAFM. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It has just gone 20 to 3 o'clock. I'm laughing because my tech producer said that when I take to the mic, I must come and rectify my statement about him testing via proxy, about bundling him up with men who text via proxy. So he just told me about how in the last couple of months, he's done his prostate screen, he's done his most recent HIV and AIDS screening, he's up to date with being a responsible human being. And he said I must call him by his name so that his partner knows that he's not in the disclaimer. But I won't do that because, your mates could be listening and stuff. So you just send your partner this audio. Very funny. So if you are a man who's done his screenings, all of his relevant medical screenings this year, good on you. Siyakhalelisa, keep the good work going, keep the responsibility and the focus going. We're catching up now with Professor David Swanepoel of the Department of Speech Language Pathology and Audiology at the University of Pretoria. And the good professor has won an international award for hearing for improving access to hearing health care. How are you doing this afternoon, Prof?
Doing really well. It's good to be with you.
Thank you so much for the time. And I always say this, that the University of Pretoria seems to be at the front edge of cutting research and innovation indeed. You guys are doing some impressive work, especially when it comes to your respective department. Let's talk about this award, the International Award for Hearing from the American Academy of Audiology. Give us some context as to, the kind of work that this award seeks to highlight, and I guess to some degree also celebrate the innovation behind.
Yes, Bridget, I think it's been an amazing journey. We're really grateful that the work that we've been doing over the past decade and more has been recognized by the largest organization for audiologists around the globe. And it's really about, the kind of contributions over the last 10 to 15 years in terms of the field of hearing loss and hearing care, but really with a focus from our perspective of making hearing healthcare more accessible, particularly for people on the continent of Africa. And that's really what the research impact has been around.
This award, and correct me if I'm wrong, this award is going to reinforce the importance of translational, oh my English today, translational research. Pardon me, Professor. How does it do that exactly? And how does it also sort of foster the importance of some of these solutions that have been brought to the table?
Yeah, that's a big word, Bridget, and it's also a big and important concept in research, right? So we want to make sure that we do research that doesn't just come up with nice theoretical academic ideas, but really come up with innovations that can translate into real-world solutions. And that's really what we've kind of set ourselves the task to do, to leverage the amazing trends we've seen in technological developments from mobile phones, AI, etc., to make hearing healthcare accessible through those means. So we've been working hard at leveraging these devices to make hearing screenings. You mentioned screenings earlier, but really so that people can actually screen their hearing at home from their own mobile phone. But also, more than that, they can also connect to the right kind of information from these devices. But ultimately, the goal was to take people through the diagnostic process and even right through the provision of interventions and hearing aids on their mobile devices.
Wonderful. You're also doing some incredible work with an organization that you founded, Hear X Group. And you're doing some incredible work, particularly in underserviced areas. Talk to us about that work.
Yes, so the HearX Foundation is a spin out from our research at the university, really kind of a vehicle that makes this translational research a reality so that we can actually get real-world solutions out there in people's hands. And we've developed a number of mobile apps that people can use to test their hearing. But we've also developed these apps so that the healthcare systems can utilize them, but at a fraction of the cost of traditional technologies. So the whole goal is really to take hearing healthcare outside of traditional clinics and into communities to reach people where they're at.
And it's impressive, Prof, that, part and parcel of your goal and your vision as well is to bring hearing care solutions to an estimated 700 million people. And you say this is something that could be achievable by 2050.
Yes, so, hearing loss is often referred to as a silent epidemic. And it's silent because people don't see it and they oftentimes don't recognize it. But it's an epidemic because it's so common. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 in every 5 people actually have a hearing loss. Many don't even know it, but they're already struggling with hearing difficulties, especially in difficult background noise situations like a restaurant. So the whole idea is we want to make sure that people recognize hearing loss as a major concern and then leverage the technologies to know what their hearing status is and to find the right interventions as early as possible, because then we can really maximize the outcomes. Hearing loss is a pervasive condition. If we don't intervene early, there are a lot of downstream negative side effects, including increased prevalence of dementia, even social isolation, and even things like dementia and cognitive decline.
This is probably our second or third engagement with you, Prof, and your department. And I know that even throughout the course of today, the concerns around hearing loss and hearing intervention as it pertains to Africa are central to your research and your work. Let's talk about, just the particular importance, particularly in the context of Africa, where, if I recall, only around 2% of people who need hearing aids actually get them.
Exactly, Bridget. So imagine that less than 2% of people who need hearing aids in Africa are actually getting them. We have the technologies, we can change people's lives, but people are just unable to access these technologies. So it's really our goal to make sure that we find ways to bridge that gap. And the technologies offer a wonderful way for us to bring down costs, but also to reach people where they're at. We only have about one hearing healthcare professional, like an audiologist or an ear, nose, and throat specialist, for every million people on the African continent. So it's way too few professionals. So we need to rely on technologies to increase our reach and access and to provide people with the care they need.
Now, that's an interesting stat that you've just mentioned, right? The lack of audiologists in comparison to the millions of people who need these medical interventions. Talk to us about, what is it perhaps about, I don't know whether it's the sector, the profession, but what is it that is preventing an interest or an uptake of more graduates and professionals in this space?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bridget. I think there's a massive shortage of training programs. So it's not so much that people don't want to be trained. South Africa has a couple of training programs. We train barely enough for our own needs. But other countries in Africa, there hardly are any training programs for audiologists. So there's just a shortage of these training programs. Which just means that the supply of professionals are way too limited for the required needs. So that's why, when we think about the technologies, if we can automate some of the testing technologies from a mobile phone with a pair of headphones that someone like a community health worker can operate. They don't have to know all the technical details, but they can facilitate a high quality test in a community-based setting so that we can identify hearing loss. We can upload those results and the professional can review them remotely, or we can rely on artificial intelligence to provide us with feedback that can support these kinds of services. So there's the tremendous potential, and I think we're just kind of scratching the surface of that at the moment. And that's also why it's important for us to work with organizations like the World Health Organization to expand the impact of these solutions. Our department is also an official collaborating center with them. So it's really about partnering also with the national departments of health and government to recognize the importance of hearing loss and providing these interventions early.
And you bring up that partnership with the World Health Organization because of the incredible work that you are doing at the University of Pretoria alongside your students and your colleagues, which has ultimately also led to HearX Group and now the sort of the three entities joining forces for work around hearing and hearing screening.
Yes, exactly. I think this is a timely conversation as well, because this month we're celebrating hearing awareness around the world. Yesterday was World Hearing Day, and the entire month of March is about recognizing the importance of hearing for life, but also the detrimental effects that hearing loss brings to our connections to people around us. So the World Health Organization has been a massive partner because they really believe that hearing loss is one of the priority areas for intervention around the globe. We're going to see a big increase in the number of people with hearing loss over the coming decades. That's due to the fact that we're seeing an aging world population, but also because there's an increasing amount of noise in the world we live in, and noise is one of the major contributors to developing hearing loss. So there's a lot of public awareness that needs to happen so that people can actually do preventative care and prevent or delay the onset of hearing loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we talk about hearing and just sort of the recreational noise, the literal recreational noise that is around us, I'm thinking about the fact that when I joined, radio 20 years ago, I remember almost getting my eardrums blown off when I'd put on their headsets in studio. Because radio broadcasters, specifically those in circular music commercial stations, keep the volume at the highest level.
Exactly.
And I would often go, wait, are y'all going to make it? I remember talking to DJ Fresh going, are you going to make it to 60 with all of your hearing at this point?
Yes.
Because a lot of us are just not conscious of just how loud, our world is.
Exactly, and you talk about being exposed to these loud noises through earphones, but youngsters are getting their ears blown off at concerts, and we enjoy it when we're young, but we pay the price later on in life, So the difficult thing with hearing loss as well is that it develops very slowly, but the damage you've caused 10 years ago only catches up with you now. So that's why the awareness is really so important. And it's not about keeping people away from the music they love. It's just about being responsible about how you listen and consume that music. So yes, it's hearing is something that we often take for granted. We can close our eyes and we know what it's like to be blind, but you can't close your ears and really appreciate the devastating effect of having a hearing loss.
Absolutely. Well, Prof, we appreciate the time with you as always, and congratulations on receiving this international award for hearing from the American Academy of Audiology for all the incredible work that you really do with the Department of Speech Language Pathology and Audiology at the university, and of course your organization HearX Group, really just reaching people at community ground level. That was Professor David Swanepoel, and it's about 4 minutes to go before we wrap up the show. Ashraf is already standing by. He's going to take over from 3 o'clock, bringing you the National Pulse with all the conversations that move the nation. Maybe we're going to double back and just I know you guys sent us some thoughts about community radio and some of your reflections on our earlier conversation. Someone actually saying that we were talking about naming and shaming if you only now jumping into the car or getting a chance to tune in on the radio. We were talking about naming and shaming earlier on in the show, rape suspects and rape accused perpetrators of sexual violence. And the question on the table was whether or not there's a line that needs to be drawn between protecting the rights of the accused individuals and the right of survivors to speak out. No doubt you know that these conversations are always polarizing. There's different perspectives, any which way you slice the cake. And we just got another message here saying that naming is not shaming them enough, in fact. Put their faces on electronic billboards. Well, okay, that's another opinion around that conversation. Let's go to WhatsApp and then we'll come back and say goodbye.
Hi, Bridget. Theis Giba here from Klerksdorp. Listen, just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Mutseki Maboya for what he has done, especially for community radio. Thank you so much for recognizing our work. We really appreciate it. This is going to be a big project and also a meaningful project, especially for us broadcasters at the community level. Thank you so much, Ndate Maboya.
Love it. Love to see it. Love to see the appreciation for Mutseki Mabuya, who's the founder of the Community Radio Awards. They're having that inaugural Radio Awards in April, honoring broadcasters and those who service the community radio industry. A very vital level and tier of radio, that is, very, very important indeed, because they bring real life stories to the grassroots and they stay committed to their communities. So they do work that I think commercial stations sometimes are incapable of doing, because we have to focus on the broader picture and we sometimes miss the most important of personal one-on-one stories that are being told in communities. That is how we wrap it up from our end today. Thank you so much for choosing to be in conversation with us. May you have an incredible afternoon further. We'll see you tomorrow, inshallah, God willing. We get to do it again.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
Whether we are at the workplace, within communities, at school, or with our friends and family, we all need to demonstrate the kind of responsibility that we would like to see in our country's future. SFM commemorates Human Rights Month.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 1